In a school full of noise, no one noticed the janitor with the broom. But when a runaway truck barreled toward the front steps, he didn't wait for permission. He ran. He fell. He saved a child. And what happened next? Well, says more about us than him. If you believe quiet heroes deserve to be seen, stick around. And if stories like this move you, tap that subscribe button. Here we tell the stories no one else will. Asterisk, there are mornings that arrive like whispers. Soft, unnoticed, nothing special. And then there are mornings that break something open. That was Thursday at Central Valley High. It started like it always did. At exactly 7:13 a.m., Mr. Howard clocked in. His name tag was worn. The lettering faded, but he still clipped it too. His gray work shirt every single day, like it meant something. Like it still mattered that people could read it. The early morning halls of Central Valley were already buzzing. Students flooded in, some half awake, some too loud, all lost in their own little worlds. Backpacks dragged, AirPods blasted music. And nobody, not one person, noticed the old janitor pushing a mop cart through the back hallway. But he noticed them. He always did. Mr. Howard had been at this school longer than most of the staff, longer than the principal, longer than the district superintendent. He wasn't just the man who cleaned the floors. He remembered those floors, where the old gym used to be, where they tore down the lockers to build the counseling office, where a fight had broken out years ago between two boys, one white, one black, and only one had been suspended. He remembered things people tried to forget. Out at 7:52 a.m., he moved outside to sweep the walkway near the front steps. The leaves had started to fall early this year. Orange, brown, gold, each one fragile, but together, a mess that needed clearing. He liked the quiet of this job, the sound of the bristles brushing against concrete, the way the school slowly woke up behind him. He didn't wear headphones. He didn't scroll his phone. He just listened. That's why he was the first to hear it. A sound, not loud at first, but wrong. Tires turning where they shouldn't. A low hum that became a shriek. Like something panicked. Desperate. He looked. Up, across the street, a white box truck marked Patterson Office Supplies was heading toward the school. Not rolling in casually. Not slowing to park. Flying. Its front wheels jittered. The driver's eyes were wide, mouth open in a scream that no one could hear yet. The truck was veering down the wrong lane, past the school zone sign. The brakes were gone. Mr. Howard's heart stopped for a second, and then started again, twice as fast. He didn't think about calling for help. There was no time for protocol. No time to wonder if someone else would step up. He just saw the kid. Jonah, 14, freshman, standing right in the path of that truck. He had earbuds in. His head was down. He was texting. And the truck was 20 feet away. Mr. Howard dropped the broom. It clattered to the ground, but he didn't hear it. All he heard was his heartbeat, pounding like war drums in his ears. He ran, legs stiff from age, knees that hadn't bent that fast in 20 years. But he ran. Move, he shouted. Kid, move. Jonah didn't hear him. He didn't even look up. The truck was closer now, barreling forward, front bumper shaking like a beast about to break loose. Mr. Howard dove. He didn't even brace himself. He wrapped his arms around the boy and threw their bodies sideways off the path, off the curb, onto the grass. His back hit the ground first, and pain shot up his spine like lightning. His ankle twisted. Something popped in his shoulder, but Jonah was safe. The truck skidded past them, front tire grazing the exact spot Jonah had just been standing. It slammed into the iron fence, crunching metal and shattering glass. The sound echoed down the street. And finally, the school noticed. Students screamed. Phones came out. Teachers rushed outside. The driver stumbled out, pale and shaking, hands raised as if to say, "I'm sorry. I couldn't stop it." But no one was looking at the truck, or looking at the old janitor who had just tackled a student like a linebacker, at the man who had no badge, no authority, no backup, but acted like it was his job to save that child. Mr. Howard winced as he sat up. His ankle was swelling fast. His chest heaved. He looked at Jonah, who was staring back, eyes wide as moons. "Okay?" Mr. Howard croaked. The boy nodded, mouth trembling. You saved me." Mr. Howard gave a half smile, then winced. "Yeah, I guess I did." By now, a crowd had formed. Kids whispering. Cameras filming. Someone was already live streaming. A girl leaned down to help Mr. Howard sit up straighter, but he shook his head. "I'm good," he said quietly. "I'm good." But he wasn't. He was hurting. All over. In places that would scream louder tomorrow morning. But what hurt more, what always hurt more, was the look on some of the faces. Confused, skeptical, surprised that it was him. The janitor, the man most students barely nodded to in the hallway. One teacher whispered, "He could have made it worse." Another said, "Why didn't he just call security?" And somewhere in the crowd, a parent muttered, "That's why we have procedures." Procedures. Mr. Howard tried to stand but couldn't. Two students helped him to a nearby bench. The nurse came out and started asking questions, taking notes. Someone from the front office showed up, clipboard in hand. "We'll need a written statement," she said, not looking him in the eye, "and possibly a report to risk management." No one asked him how he was. He sat there, surrounded by murmurs, as the paramedics checked Jonah and confirmed he was unhurt. The truck was being towed away. The school bell rang, and kids shuffled off to first period like nothing had happened. Jonah stayed behind. He kept glancing at Mr. Howard. "Do you work here every day?" The boy asked softly. Mr. Howard nodded. "Every day." "I never saw you before," Jonah said. Mr. Howard smiled, tired. "That's all right. You see me now." Later, as the courtyard emptied and the sun rose higher, Mr. Howard limped back to the supply closet. His ankle throbbed, but he didn't ask to go home. He didn't ask for a thank you. He picked up his broom, the one he dropped, and swept the leaves that had gathered again while no one was looking, because that was the job. And somewhere on a student's phone, a 39-second video was already being uploaded. A janitor running. A boy saved. A man nobody saw until he moved faster than the world around him. The next morning smelled like rain, even though the sky was dry. The wind swept low across the concrete, and somewhere in the distance, a lawnmower buzzed like everything in the world was still normal. But inside Central Valley High, it wasn't got in. The main office, the blinds were half drawn. The coffee machine wheezed. Phones rang once and stopped. Everyone walked a little too quietly, like they were hoping someone else would handle whatever was coming. At 7:42 a.m., Mr. Howard walked through the side door with his lunch in a paper bag and his keys clipped to his belt loop like always. He nodded to the security guard at the front desk, who gave a polite but nervous smile. Before he could reach the janitor's closet, a secretary approached. "Mr. Howard, the principal would like to see you." There was no please. No good morning. Just a request wrapped in formality, as cold and flavorless as the air in that hallway. Mr. Howard blinked. "Now?" She nodded. He followed her down the corridor, his work boots making dull echoes on the tile floor. He wasn't limping, but every step reminded him of the way he'd landed yesterday, hard, fast, and flat on his back. His ankle had stiffened overnight. He hadn't told anyone. He hadn't even iced it. That's not the kind of man he was. The principal's office smelled like lemon wipes and old policies. Mrs. Stanton sat behind a desk too large for the room, her glasses low on her nose, her expression somewhere between tired and rehearsed. "Please. Sit," she said, gesturing toward the chair opposite her. He did. She folded her hands. "First, let me begin by saying that I'm relieved the student is okay. That could have been much worse." "Yes, ma'am," Mr. Howard said. "That being said, double quotes." She adjusted her glasses. "We've received a number of concerns about your actions yesterday. A situation involving the delivery truck." Mr. Howard nodded slowly. "I did what I had to do. The kid was in the truck's path." "Yes, and I understand that. But from the district's standpoint, there are protocols in place for emergencies. Staff members are expected to alert administration or security personnel, not to physically intervene." He looked at her for a long moment. There wasn't time. Mrs. Stanton paused, as if she hadn't considered that. Or maybe she had, but couldn't afford to let it change anything. "We've also had a parent call in this morning," she continued. "The mother of a student who witnessed the incident. She said her daughter was frightened, saw the crash, had trouble sleeping." Mr. Howard's jaw tightened. "Wasn't her daughter in danger?" "She wasn't," the principal replied, "but she was affected emotionally." He sat back in his chair, hands folded over his stomach, as still as stone. He'd sat through this kind of thing before. Years ago, during his last job, when a fellow janitor tried to de-escalate a fight and got blamed for escalating it. When you wore a uniform without a tie, the rules bent differently around you. "I understand your intention," Mrs. Stanton said. "But the district could interpret this as a violation of safety protocol. We may need to document this in your personnel file." Document it. The word hit harder than it should have. Like someone stamping shame over something sacred. "I didn't break anything," he said quietly. "I prevented something from breaking." She didn't respond. She opened a manila folder, glanced down at something typed and double-spaced. "For now, this is just an internal note. No suspension, no disciplinary hearing. But we do ask that in the future, you refrain from intervening physically in emergencies." "In the future," Mr. Howard said slowly. "I hope there's no need to." The meeting ended without a handshake. As he stood to leave, she said his name. "Not Mr. Howard, just Howard." Like a reminder, like a label. Outside her door, the hallway hummed with students again. Backpacks thumped, sneakers squeaked, a girl shrieked over something in her phone. Life moved forward, but he moved slower. He returned to the supply room in silence, sat on a metal stool. The walls buzzed with the soft hum of fluorescent lights. He pulled off his glove and stared at the bruising on his wrist. The kid had been heavier than he looked. There was no ceremony. No one clapped. No announcements. Not even a pat on the back from the security team who had shown up after the fact. Instead, the message was quiet and clear. "You overstepped. You made us uncomfortable." He put on his work gloves again and got back to what he did best, cleaning. What others left behind. Later that day, during lunch hour, he overheard a pair of teachers talking in the break room. They didn't notice he was restocking paper towels in the adjacent supply closet. "I mean, it was brave, sure," one said. "But what if the kid had gotten hurt? Or if Howard got hurt and tried to sue?" "Exactly. The district can't open itself up like that. That's why we have emergency plans." Mr. Howard stopped for a second, then kept folding paper towels into the dispenser. Across the school, students whispered in hallways. Some had seen the crash. Some only heard about. A few asked each other, "Wait, the janitor saved him?" Most still didn't know his name. Jonah hadn't returned to school yet. His mother had kept him home to rest, though the boy insisted he was fine. But he wasn't fine. Not in the way the school expected, because Jonah saw everything differently. Now he kept thinking about how Mr. Howard didn't even hesitate. about how no one else had moved, about how some of the teachers just watched Dot, and about how the man who saved him walked away with a twisted ankle. A scolding, and nothing else. Dot at home that night, Jonah scrolled through social media. He searched the school's website. There was no post, no update, no photo, just silence. He opened his email app, typed to board@centralvalleyschools.org. Subject: My life. Hello. My name is Jonah Reese. I'm a student at Central Valley High. I'm writing to tell you that Mr. Howard, the janitor, saved my life. He didn't wait. He didn't check for rules. He ran when no one else did. I'm only 14, but I know what right looks like. And I know when adults get it wrong. If you let this slide without acknowledging him, then maybe you've forgotten what school is supposed to teach. He didn't ask for attention. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't give it. Sincerely, Jonah. He hit send before he could overthink it. The next morning, Jonah printed out that same letter and gave it to his mom. She read it twice. Her hand trembled just a little. Then she made a phone call. Then another. By noon, the office of the local news had a copy. And Mr. Howard, he was mopping the second-floor hallway, humming low to himself, unaware that somewhere in the city, his name was beginning to surface, not as a rule breaker, but as something far rarer. A quiet man who did the right thing in a world obsessed with paperwork. The internet doesn't care about policies. It doesn't follow protocol, doesn't wait for committee meetings or internal memos. It moves with emotion faster than truth, deeper than logic, and on Friday night, the internet found Mr. Howard. It started with a freshman named Lise Cortez. He wasn't popular. He didn't play football. He didn't hang out with the drama kids. He was the quiet kind, the kind who filmed everything, edited in iMovie, and dreamed of going viral just once. He was standing on the school steps that morning when the truck came. He'd filmed it almost without thinking. The blur of tires, the janitor running, the tackle, the impact, the silence afterward. He hadn't shown it to anyone at first. But then he heard what happened in the office, the part about Mr. Howard being counseled for unauthorized intervention. And that didn't sit right. Not with what Louise had seen. So at 8:04 p.m. that night, he uploaded the clip to TikTok. No fancy effects, no voiceover. Just raw footage and a caption. This man saved my classmate's life. Now he's getting in trouble for it? Someone tell me how that's right. By 8:15, the video had 1,200 views. By 9 o'clock, it had 14,000. By midnight, it had hit 2.3 million. The comments came fast and angry. He's a hero. What is wrong with this school? Retire the principal, not the janitor. I'd take 100 Mr. Howards over one more clipboard bureaucrat. And it wasn't just students. Parents started sharing it. Veterans. Teachers from other districts. A nurse in New York posted, "I've seen this before. The people who do the most get punished for it. Not today." By morning, local news had picked it up. Channel 4 ran it as their lead story. Janitor saves student. School officials reprimand him. The footage looped on the screen. A red banner underneath it read, "Developing story, hero or hazard." In a small apartment on the east side of town, Mr. Howard's phone vibrated non-stop on the kitchen table. He didn't answer it. He didn't need to. He already knew the storm had started. He sat in silence, stirring a cup of instant coffee, staring at the wall. The TV was off. His dog, Jasper, a mutt with 3 legs and an old soldier's patience, lay at his feet. Sensing something was off, there were knocks on his door throughout the day. Reporters, bloggers, a woman from a social justice podcast. He turned them all away, kindly but firmly. "I've said what I needed to say," he told one man through the screen door. "It wasn't about me. But it was about him. Whether he liked it or not, Jonah, the boy he saved, saw the video from his bedroom, recovering from a twisted wrist. His mother stood behind him, hand on his shoulder. She whispered, "That man saved my baby, and they want to punish him." For it, Jonah didn't say anything. But 5 minutes later, he opened Google Docs and started writing. A letter to the school board. Luce's video kept growing. On Twitter, it was reshared by a congresswoman. On Facebook, it appeared on a veterans page with the caption, "When the uniform comes off, we don't stop serving." Because someone had dug up more about Mr. Howard. A student journalist at the school paper, Naomi Kim, a junior with a camera around her neck, found out that Mr. Howard wasn't just a janitor. He was a veteran. Marine Corps, Desert Storm, 2 tours, Bronze Star. No one had ever asked. He never told, but once it got out, it changed the story. This wasn't just an old man with a broom. This was a man who'd spent his life running toward danger, and now the world was running toward him. The school, meanwhile, panicked. By Monday morning, the front office was flooded with phone calls. Emails poured in, some angry, some supportive, most demanding answers. The principal called an emergency staff meeting. "We are not here to play the villain," she said, her voice tight. "We are following guidelines. This could have been a legal disaster if the child had been hurt, but he wasn't," a teacher interrupted. "Because of Mr. Howard." The room fell silent. In the hallway, students walked past Mr. Howard differently now. Some nodded, some whispered. One girl, a senior who never spoke much, left a granola bar and a thank you note taped to his supply closet door. He didn't say much. He never did. But his eyes stayed softer than usual that morning. A little heavier too. In a journalism classroom, Naomi Kim uploaded a profile titled, "The Man We Didn't See." It opened with a simple line, "He's been cleaning up after us for years. Now we owe him more than a thank you." The article was shared by CNN's student media blog. More eyes, more pressure. On Tuesday night, a rally was held outside the school gates. Students, parents, alumni. Homemade signs. Do the right thing. Honor the janitor. Protect the protector. Jonah's letter was read aloud through a megaphone. His voice cracked halfway through, but he kept going. "Mr. Howard didn't ask if I was rich or poor. He didn't care what color I was, or what I scored on a math test. He saw someone in danger, and he helped me. And now you want to say that was wrong? Maybe it's the rules that are wrong." A crowd applauded. Some cried. Inside the building, the district superintendent watched through the blinds. By Wednesday, it wasn't a story anymore. It was a reckoning. Someone unearthed other complaints, quiet whispers from past years, where employees were discouraged from intervening, where safety came second to image. Suddenly, it wasn't just about Mr. Howard. It was about every invisible person who had ever stepped up and been told to step down. That night, Mr. Howard finally opened his phone. He scrolled through the video, watched it once. Just once. Then he turned the phone off, placed it on the table, and went back to folding. Laundry. His dog nudged his foot. Outside, his street was quiet. But the world was listening now. And somewhere across town, a metal plate was being engraved with his name, not because he asked for it, but because silence, for once, wasn't allowed to win. By the time Saturday morning rolled around, the world outside Mr. Howard's front door was louder than ever. And yet, inside his small one-bedroom apartment, just 2 blocks from the train tracks and 3 from the high school, it was quiet. The kind of quiet that comes from routine. Familiar. Undisturbed. The place was clean. Almost too clean. Everything folded. Everything in place. The carpet had a path worn into it from his boots' front door to kitchen, kitchen to bedroom, bedroom, to front door. On the counter sat a chipped mug of coffee that had gone cold but still held meaning. Next to it, an old radio played jazz. Soft, nothing fancy. Miles Davis and weather reports. Mr. Howard sat at the edge of his couch, folding laundry. One sock at a time. Slow, careful, as if pressing creases into his day might hold the rest of the world at bay. He heard the knock before the dog barked. Jasper, a mixed mutt with 3 legs and a loyalty deeper than blood, limped to the door and gave a low, almost lazy woof. Mr. Howard stood, rubbed his knees, and opened it. Outside stood a woman with a camera bag slung over her shoulder and a nervous smile that said she knew she was intruding. "Mr. Howard?" she asked. He didn't answer. At first. Just studied her the way he used to read blueprints when he worked facilities, looking for the weak points, the pressure lines. "I'm Claire Thompson," she said quickly, sensing the hesitation. "I'm with Channel 4, local news." "I know who you are," he said quietly. "You were outside the school Tuesday." She nodded. "I was. But I wanted to ask, may I speak with you? Off camera, if you prefer." He considered that. The woman didn't look pushy, didn't dress like she was chasing clicks. Her eyes weren't hungry. Just human. He opened the screen door. "Only? If you're okay with sitting on an old couch and talking to a man who doesn't like microphones." She smiled. "That's my favorite kind of interview." They sat across from each other. He offered her water, nothing more. No need for formalities. Jasper climbed up beside him on the couch, one paw hanging over Mr. Howard's leg, like a question mark. Claire took out a recorder, but didn't turn it on yet. "Can I ask why you haven't spoken up until now?" He folded a t-shirt slowly, smoothing the edges. "Because I don't think saving a kid should be a headline. I think it should be ... expected." Claire tilted her head. "And yet, it isn't. Not these days." He gave a half smile. "Maybe that's the problem." She leaned forward, resting her elbows on her knees. "Do you realize how many people have watched that video?" "I heard," he said. "Someone told me it's viral, like the flu." "More like wildfire," she replied. "People are angry. They think the school treated you unfairly, that you deserve more than a reprimand." He didn't flinch. "You ever served in the military?" "Ms. Thompson?" She shook her head. "Well, I did," he said. 2 tours. Desert Storm. And what I learned is, you do the right thing when it's time to do it. Doesn't matter who's watching. Doesn't matter what you get after." She was quiet. Just nodded. "I didn't jump in front of that truck for a reward," he continued. "I did it because that boy was going to die if I didn't. That's it. That's all." Claire finally hit record on her device, setting it gently on the table between them. "I know you're not after attention," she said. "But there are people out there, teachers, kids who see you now, who maybe finally understand what kind of man's been cleaning their halls all these years." Mr. Howard looked down at Jasper, scratched behind the dog's ear. "Funny, took a truck and a viral video for people to say hello in the hallway." She nodded. "Can I ask, do you feel disappointed by how the school reacted?" He didn't answer right away. "I feel ... He paused, trying to put a lifetime into words. "I feel like people love rules until someone breaks one to save their kid. Then suddenly, rules don't matter so much." Claire let out a soft breath. "That's the quote. That's the one." "I'm not trying to make a point," he said. "Just telling the truth." "I think that's what people are starving for," she said. "Truth, from someone who doesn't have a PR team." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small folder. "These are letters," she said, placing it on the table. "Some from students. Some from people who've never even met you. We've gotten dozens. Thought you should read a few. He didn't open it. Not yet. Thank you, he said simply. Claire turned off the recorder, closed her notebook, but stayed seated. May I ask one last thing? She said. What do you want out of all this? Fame? A ceremony? A plaque? He shook his head. I want them to fix the brake system on those trucks. I want someone to teach those kids how to look up when they cross the street. And maybe ... He looked out the window where the light was softer now, more forgiving. Maybe I want them to remember the janitor next time they decide who's worth listening to. She smiled, but her eyes were glassy now. He stood, walked her to the door. Outside, the air had shifted. A breeze carried the smell of fresh grass and something else changed. Thank you for your time, she said. You're welcome, he replied. As she walked back to her car, she looked over her shoulder and called out, Mr. Howard? Yeah? You're exactly who we should be talking about. He nodded once. I just hope we're also talking about the next one. And the one after that. She drove off. Inside, Mr. Howard sat back down on the couch. Jasper climbed back, up with a grunt. He opened the folder. The first letter was written in pencil, in shaky 8th grade handwriting. Dear Mr. Howard, I didn't know your name before, but now I do, and I'm sorry for that. The next, you made me want to be a better man, and I'm only 12. Another, thank you for seeing us, even when we didn't see you. He didn't cry. Not exactly, but he stopped folding laundry. For a long time, outside, cars drove by. Somewhere, someone was watching the video again, sharing it, talking about him. But in that small living room, it was only the hum of the radio and the steady breathing of a dog who had seen his owner go out into the world again and return, not broken, but finally noticed. On Sunday night, Jonah Reese sat on the floor of his bedroom, surrounded by crumpled paper. His laptop sat open but untouched. A glowing screen displayed a blank Google Doc, the blinking cursor blinking like a challenge he couldn't ignore. He had written a dozen drafts, deleted them all. Nothing seemed big enough, or small enough, or right. Across the hall, his mom was on the phone again, third call in 20 minutes. Talking to a friend, a cousin, maybe the school board again. Jonah had stopped keeping track. But the one thing she hadn't done was tell him what to say. That part was up to him. He looked down at his wrist. Still a little swollen. Still sore. But healing. He remembered the feeling. 1 second he was scrolling through a playlist. The next, the ground was against his back, and the sky was spinning. And Mr. Howard's hand, rough, steady, was gripping his shoulder. You okay, kid? Jonah hadn't answered then. But he knew the answer now. He was okay because of Mr. Howard. He took a breath and started typing. Dear School Board, my name is Jonah Reese. I'm a 9th grade student at Central Valley High School. On Thursday morning, I almost died. His fingers paused over the keyboard. It felt dramatic, even for him, but it was true. And if he had learned anything in the last 3 days, it was that truth sometimes needed to sound loud. He kept going. If you've seen the video, you know what happened. But in case you haven't, a truck lost control and came straight for the front steps of the school. I was standing there. I didn't see it coming. I didn't hear it. But Mr. Howard did. He didn't wait. He didn't check for permission. He ran, and he pushed me out of the way. He saved my life. I didn't know his name until that day. I had walked past him 100 times. I never said thank you. I barely said hello. But now I know. His name is Mr. Howard, and he is a hero. So why is he being treated like a problem? Jonah stopped and stared at the last line. He thought of the conversation his mom had with the school counselor earlier that day. They're reviewing the situation, she had said carefully. It's complicated, Jonah. There are rules. Rules. He closed his eyes and thought of that truck, of how fast it came, of how slow the system was in comparison. Then he kept typing. I know there are rules. I know schools have policies. But when a man sees a kid about to be hit by a truck and he jumps in front of it, the first thing you say to him should not be, you broke protocol. The first thing you should say is, thank you. And I haven't seen that yet. So I'm saying it now. He looked at the clock. 11:34 p.m. His mom knocked lightly on the door and peeked in. Still up? Yeah, Jonah said. I'm almost done. She stepped in, soft-footed, the way she did when he was younger and afraid of storms. Want me to read it when you're finished? He nodded. 15 minutes later, she sat beside him on the floor, knees pulled to her chest, reading each word out loud. By the end, her voice cracked just once. She cleared her throat and nodded. This is good, baby, she said. This is real good. They sent it together to the school board, to the district, to the local newspaper, and to Channel 4. Jonah didn't even hesitate. And then, because he was still 14, he brushed his teeth and went to bed. The next morning, the letter was everywhere. It started when Naomi Kim, the junior journalist with a camera, always slung around her shoulder, posted it to the school's online news portal under the headline, Jonah Speaks, a letter to the adults in the room. Within hours, it had been shared 3,000 times, then 12,000, then 50,000. Students printed it and taped it to their lockers. Teachers read it aloud before class. Someone spray chalked, "Thank you, M.R. Howard," crossed the sidewalk in front of the school before sunrise. Jonah didn't expect the attention. He hadn't written it to go viral. He wrote it because silence felt heavier than fear. By second period, he was pulled out of class. His teacher smiled and said, "Don't worry, you're not in trouble." In the hallway stood Mrs. Patel, one of the assistant principals, holding a visitor badge in her hand and a kind of soft awe in her voice. "You've got someone here to see you." She led him to the media room, where the lights were set low and the smell of wires and microphones filled the air. Claire Thompson from Channel 4 stood up and offered her hand. "You wrote something that stopped people in their tracks," she said. "Mind if we talk?" Jonah glanced around the room. Sure. Do I sit here?" "Anywhere you like." He sat across from her. A camera rolled. Nothing fancy. No lights in his face. Just the soft hum of being heard. Claire smiled. "Tell me why you wrote it." Jonah swallowed. "Because Mr. Howard deserved it." "Did anyone ask you to write it?" "No, ma'am. No one even talked about him in class. We just went back to math and lunch like nothing happened." "Do you think that's part of the problem?" she asked. He nodded. "Yeah, people see someone like Mr. Howard and they just look past him, like he's part of the floor. Part of the walls." Claire leaned in. "But he's not." "No," Jonah said. "He's part of us." There was a pause, a small one. But it felt like the entire school had stopped moving. Across town, Mr. Howard sat on his lunch break with a peanut butter sandwich in one hand and a stack of folded towels in the other. The custodian break room didn't have a TV, but the woman from the front office showed him the clip on her phone. "Your boy's on the news?" she said. Mr. Howard squinted, wiped his hands on a napkin, and watched Jonah speak. At first, he said nothing. Then he reached over, gently turned the volume up, and sat back. The camera cut to a shot of Jonah's letter, printed on screen. Read in voiceover by Claire. "You don't need to wear a badge to be brave. You don't need to sit at a desk to make a difference. Sometimes the bravest people wear gloves and carry a broom." The break room was silent. Even the vending machine seemed to pause. Mr. Howard didn't smile, but he whispered, That boy's got his head on right. After the interview aired, the school board released a statement. We are moved by the student response and grateful for Mr. Howard's actions. We are reviewing our policies and reconsidering how we recognize acts of service from all members of our school community. It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was something. That afternoon, Jonah walked into the cafeteria and people clapped. Not a lot of people. Not all. But enough to turn heads. He ducked his chin, embarrassed, but someone handed him a sticky note. That read, "Thanks for being brave. Room 208. Later, he found a new sign taped to Mr. Howard's supply closet door. He cleaned the floors and cleared the way for us to speak. Jonah smiled. Maybe 14 was old enough to change something. By Tuesday morning, the front office of Central Valley High smelled like fresh printer ink, burnt coffee, and panic. The district had been quiet all weekend, but the phones weren't. Local parents had called, so had alumni, veterans groups, former students. Even a retired janitor from Cleveland left a voicemail that simply said, "You folks better fix this before it gets worse." And then Jonah's letter happened. Not just the writing of it, but the wildfire it became. The Moment Channel 4 aired Jonah's voice saying, "He saved my life. And I see him now." Something cracked. It was the kind of shift it couldn't be undone with a polite statement or a neatly worded press release. But that didn't stop them from trying. At 9:04 a.m., the district emailed a new statement to every inbox tied to the school official. Statement from Central Valley School District. We recognize and appreciate the brave actions taken by Mr. Charles Howard during last week's incident. While we remain committed to maintaining strict safety procedures for the well-being of our students and staff, we also acknowledge that real-life situations can challenge even the best-laid policies. In light of ongoing conversations with our community, we are pausing all disciplinary reviews related to the incident. Furthermore, we are beginning a broader dialogue on how to better recognize and empower all members of our school family, including those who often go unseen. We thank our students, staff, and families for their passionate advocacy and continued commitment to making Central Valley a place of inclusion and respect. The email ended with a photo of the district's new values poster: empathy, integrity, safety, growth. It wasn't enough. Kids read the email aloud in class and laughed. One student said, "So ... They're sorry for not being sorry?" Another whispered, "That poster's been in the office since 2015, and they just now remembered it." Even the teachers weren't buying it. Miss Chandler, who taught sophomore English, looked up from her laptop and muttered, "You don't pause a disciplinary review of a hero. You throw him a parade." Meanwhile, Mr. Howard, he was mopping the gym floor like it was any other Tuesday. Because for him, it was. Same cart, same bucket, same slow, steady rhythm. A few students passed by and gave him quiet nods. One girl whispered, "Thank you, sir." Another handed him a folded note with a small drawing of a caped janitor and the words, "You're our guardian." He didn't smile wide, but his eyes softened. He tucked the note into his pocket like a treasure map. Back in the office, the principal, Mrs. Stanton, paced her carpet like it was on fire. "Should we invite him to speak at Friday assembly?" she asked. Aloud. Mr. Larkin, the vice principal, hesitated. He might say something ... unscripted. "Right," she sighed. "Well, maybe we give him a plaque instead. We should run that by legal first." She stopped pacing. "You do realize," she said slowly, "this whole thing started because he saved a child." "Yes," Larkin replied. "And now we're the villains in a story we didn't write." She groaned. Across town, in a modest newsroom above a dry cleaner, Claire Thompson received an anonymous envelope. Inside was a printed email thread. between the school principal and district officials. Dated Friday morning, the day after the rescue. The top email read, "We need to get ahead of this. If the student's family pushes back, we'll say the janitor acted with good intentions but poor judgment." Claire blinked. She read it again. And then she did what journalists do best. She got to work. That night's news segment opened with the anchor's voice, calm but cutting. New developments tonight in the story of Mr. Charles Howard, the janitor, who saved a student's life last week at Central Valley High. Leaked emails suggest the district attempted to preemptively frame his actions as poor judgment before any investigation, and before the video of his heroism went viral. They ran the footage. They showed Jonah's letter. They read student quotes. And then Claire ended the segment with a single sentence that echoed across living rooms. Sometimes, a man with a mop tells a cleaner story than the ones in suits. Next morning, Central Valley High looked different. There were posters now, not District 1 student made. He cleaned our floors. Now he's cleaning our conscience. Mr. Howard doing what heroes do without asking first. This school is built on men like him. One parent brought in a tray of donuts and asked, "Where does Mr. Howard take his breaks?" The front office froze, then pointed toward the custodian supply room in the back hallway. She left the box there with a note. "You remind us that quiet doesn't mean invisible." Meanwhile, the district scrambled. News cameras were outside the building. Students were interviewed at lunch. Jonah had been asked to speak at a town hall. Alumni from as far as Boston emailed the school, saying things like, "He was always kind to us. I remember him letting me into the building when I forgot my art project. I never forgot that. Glad someone's finally saying his name. But Mr. Howard? He stayed the same. He didn't show up to the staff meeting where Mrs. Stanton publicly acknowledged his contribution. He didn't accept the donut in person. He didn't watch the evening news. Instead, that afternoon, he fixed a broken locker hinge in the science hallway. The boy whose locker it was, a sophomore named Tyler, stood nearby watching, awkwardly. "You, Mr. Howard?" "Yes, son? Just wanted to say. If it were me in front of that truck, I don't think anyone else would have moved." Mr. Howard looked up, soft eyes under heavy lids. "Let's hope you never find out." He stood, wiped his hands, and walked away before the moment got too big. On Thursday, just before final bell, the intercom buzzed to life. Mrs. Stanton's voice came through, calm and scripted. "Good afternoon, Central Valley. Tomorrow during our all-school assembly, we will be taking a moment to recognize Mr. Charles Howard for his service and courage. We invite all students and staff to attend and show appreciation." The students looked around. Someone muttered, "Took them long enough." Another whispered, "I hope he actually shows up." Jonah sat in math class, staring out the window. He wasn't sure what bothered him more, that they were giving Mr. Howard attention now, or that they had needed pressure to do it. Friday game. The gym was full. Students filled the bleachers. Teachers lined the walls. The buzz in the air wasn't excitement. It was tension. Mrs. Stanton took the mic, read a speech, thanked the custodial staff, talked about safety, mentioned heroism in all forms. Then, finally, "Mr. Charles Howard, would you please come to the stage?" The applause started small, then grew and grew. He walked slowly down the middle of the gym floor. Same boots, same calm expression, no fancy suit, just his work shirt and name tag. He climbed the steps and took the mic, waited for the room to settle. Then, in that low, steady voice everyone had walked past for years, he spoke. "I don't need a stage. I never wanted one. I didn't jump in front of that truck for a plaque or applause. I did it because someone needed help. That's it. But if you're asking what I do want, it's this. Look at the people you don't usually look at. Say their names. Say hello. Don't wait until a video goes viral to recognize that someone matters. Then he handed the mic back, and walked off stage. No music. No fireworks. Just the sound of a gym full of kids standing on their feet and clapping like the world had just learned something. The morning after the assembly felt different, but not for Mr. Howard. He still showed up at 6:45 a.m. before the sun had stretched fully over the roof of Central Valley High. He still parked in the same gravel space behind the cafeteria, where the pavement was cracked and nobody else ever parked. Still carried the same black thermos, half full of yesterday's coffee. Still wore his standard gray button-up with the name Howard stitched on the left side like a badge no one ever saluted. If you asked him how the assembly went, he'd probably say it ended. He hadn't stayed for long. Just said his piece, handed the mic back, and walked off the stage, while applause swelled behind him. It wasn't that he didn't appreciate the clapping. He just didn't need it to know what was right. But the kids were different now. When he pushed his mop cart through the front hallway that morning, students didn't part like he was an obstacle. They didn't keep their eyes on their phones, or their voices too loud to notice him. They looked up. They nodded. One even said, "Good morning, Mr. Howard." It had been years since anyone at that school had used his name. By third period, he was finishing up the north stairwell, fixing a step that had started to creak louder than it should. He always carried a small bottle of industrial lube and a ratchet. Years ago, someone told him it wasn't in his job description. He never brought it up again, but never stopped doing it either. It was about 10:47 a.m. when he headed back to his supply closet. That closet had always been his space. Not large, but neat. A folding chair, a little radio, hooks for his jacket, and spare gloves. The school had offered to give him a staff lounge key once. He declined. But today, when he reached the door, something was off. A folded envelope was taped to the metal locker inside. White, with thick black marker across the front, for Mr. Howard. No return address. No name. Just those 4 words. He peeled it off, set it gently on the table next to his gloves, and stared at it for a moment. Then he opened it. Inside were dozens of smaller notes, handwritten, folded into tight squares, all different paper types lined. Notebook, graph paper, even torn pieces of cafeteria napkins. Some were just scribbles. Some were careful cursive. He picked one at random and unfolded it. "I used to walk right past you. Now I see you. Thank you." Another. "You saved someone. You saved all of us, kinda. You reminded us we're not alone." He kept reading, one by one. "I told my mom about you. She cried. She said the world needs more people like you. You make me want to be a better person. And I'm only 14. Thank you for not caring who Jonah was. You just moved. I wish I could be that brave. You don't know me, but you fixed my locker 3 years ago when no one else would. I never said thank you. So ... Thank you." He didn't realize he was holding his breath until he let it out. Then he found one more written in red ink, blocky and awkward. "I used to laugh at janitors. I thought it was a job for people who didn't try hard enough. Now I think it's a job for people strong enough to carry what the rest of us drop." That one made his hands tremble. He read every single one, folded them again, lined them up like medals. And for a moment, the old, chipped linoleum floor beneath his boots felt like marble. Outside, the day continued. Class changes. Bell rings. Teenagers doing what teenagers do. The school didn't stop because one man received a handful of truth, but the students kept leaving more notes. Everywhere. One taped to his mop handle. You sweep the floors. But you swept away silence. One on the water fountain. This place is cleaner because of you, not just the floors. Even the vending machine had one. If heroes wore capes, we'd miss the ones in boots. By lunch, there were more than 30. Mr. Howard didn't say much. Just kept doing his job, now with a folded letter or two tucked in his shirt pocket. But the staff noticed. Mrs. Chandler, the English teacher, walked past and whispered. About time they started seeing what we always saw. The school nurse brought him a protein bar and said, just in case your next rescue mission doesn't come with a lunch break. And the security guard, usually half asleep by the front door, gave him a nod that felt like a salute. At the end of the day, after the last bell rang and the halls emptied like lungs exhaling after a long day, Mr. Howard took a slow walk down the main hallway. He moved past the trophy case, the auditorium, and the long row of lockers that always seemed to stick. Then he stopped. His locker, the one custodians were assigned years ago. His was always number 132. He opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, taped to the inside wall. Handwritten. No signature. Just one long message. He read it slowly, like you read something too important to rush. Dear Mr. Howard, you don't know me. That's okay. I didn't know you either. I thought I knew what mattered in this school. I thought it was test scores, friend groups, sports, grades, clothes, but none of that helped when the truck came. You did. I realized something watching you. That real people don't wait for applause. Real people just show up. You show up. Every day. You showed up that morning, and you showed up when it counted most. So now, we want to show up for you. Even if it's just in notes. Even if it's just in words. Because what you did didn't just save Jonah. It saved the rest of us from thinking kindness was outdated. Thank you for proving otherwise. He read it twice, then once more. Then, with the same hands that had been cleaning floors for over 20 years, he carefully removed it, folded it, and slid it gently into the front pocket of his shirt close to his chest. He didn't cry, but he sat on the bench outside the locker and closed his eyes. And for the first time in years, he felt something shift deep in his ribs. Not pride, not validation. Belonging. That night, he got home to Jasper waiting by the door, tail wagging just once, the usual breeding. Mr. Howard took off his boots, hung up his keys, and walked to the fridge. He opened it slowly and added the new letter to the growing collection pinned to the door. He didn't arrange them by color or name. He arranged them by feel. Which ones made him pause the longest. Then he poured himself a glass of water. And sat in the quiet, knowing that somewhere, someone was still writing, still thanking him, still seeing him. The plaque went up on a Thursday morning, 1 week after the assembly. It wasn't announced over the loudspeaker. There was no ribbon-cutting ceremony or PTA-organized photo op. Just a single maintenance worker, quietly drilling 4 screws into the hallway wall outside the cafeteria. When the students came in that morning, sleepy-eyed and phone-distracted, they barely noticed it first. Just a new sign. Another thing on the wall. But as the day wore on, the traffic slowed near that spot. People started stopping. Reading, staring. The plaque was simple. Black with gold trim, the lettering etched with quiet pride. Howard Hall, named for Charles Howard, who swept more than floors. He swept away fear. He swept away silence. He swept us into awareness. May we never walk past one another again. Mr. Howard didn't ask for the plaque. He didn't even know it was coming. He found out when he turned the corner on his way to fix a loose ceiling tile and saw a crowd gathered by the wall. Students, teachers, staff, all standing still in a place where stillness rarely happened. He slowed then stopped. Someone stepped aside. A student Jonah met his eyes and gave a small nod. Mr. Howard walked up, took a breath, and read it. Of it. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. His eyes lingered on the final line. May we never walk past one another again. And for the first time in 23 years at that school, someone clapped for him in the middle of a hallway. Not because he'd just saved a life, but because he'd lived one in plain sight and taught them how to see. In the weeks that followed, things didn't become perfect. There were still messy hallways, still loud lunches, still kids who rolled their eyes at 8 a.m., but something had changed. Now, when Mr. Howard walked by with his cart, students stepped aside, not out of avoidance, but respect. Now, when a locker jammed, someone actually said, "Thank you," when he fixed it. Now, when teachers talked about role models, they didn't always point to historical figures. Sometimes, they pointed to the man cleaning the gym floor. And now, a new kind of quiet filled the air when he passed, a reverent one. The kind that follows people who've earned your silence. One Friday afternoon, 3 weeks after the plaque went up, a student named Maya knocked on the custodial closet door. Mr. Howard opened it, wiping his hands on a rag. "Yes, ma'am?" She shifted nervously. "I'm doing a project for journalism class," she said. "We're supposed to interview someone we think represents strength." He raised an eyebrow. "I'm flattered, but strength?" "Yes, sir," she said without hesitation. "And I think people need to hear you. You know, not just about the truck, but about everything. Like ... Why you never asked for anything." He nodded slowly. "Come back Monday," he said. "Bring good questions and patience." She smiled. Deal. Over time, the letters kept coming. Not every day. Not every week. But steady, like rain on a roof. Some from students who'd graduated. Some from parents. Some from staff who said they'd worked beside him for years and never realized what they had in him. He kept every one of them. By spring, he'd filled a shoebox with folded thank you notes. The kind of collection no paycheck could replace. One afternoon in April, Principal Stanton caught him in the hallway. "Mr. Howard," she said, almost breathless. "Do you have a second?" He stopped, leaned on his mop. "Yes, ma'am?" "We're naming a scholarship in your honor," she said, "for seniors going into trades or community service fields. We'd like your blessing." He was quiet, then nodded. "Only if you don't make them right about me. Make them right about what they want to fix." "Deal," she said with a smile. By May, the hallway where the plaque was installed had become more than a hallway. It became a place students went when they felt unseen. They left sticky notes beneath the plaque. Questions, hopes, sometimes just their names. A quiet way of saying, "I'm here." And somehow, they felt safer doing it there, beneath the name of a man who had once gone unseen too. On the last day of school, Jonah stopped by the closet one more time. He was taller now, a little more sure of himself. He was wearing a black t-shirt with yellow lettering that read, "See the people who clean your mirrors." "Hey, Mr. Howard," he said, peeking in. "Got a minute?" Mr. Howard looked up from coiling an extension cord. "For you?" "Always." Jonah stepped in and handed him a letter. This one was typed, single-spaced, in a folder. "What's this?" Mr. Howard asked. "My college essay," Jonah said, almost shy. "I wrote about you." Mr. Howard looked down at the folder. "Should I be worried?" Jonah smiled. "Maybe a little. I said you were stubborn. But mostly I said you were the first man I ever saw do something brave without needing credit." Mr. Howard nodded, eyes blinking slower now. "Well," he said, "I suppose I can live with that." That night, after the last of the buses had pulled away, and the summer quiet had begun to settle over the school like a blanket, Mr. Howard sat in the hallway in front of the plaque, He wasn't fixing anything, wasn't cleaning, just sitting beside him. His mop cart sat still for once. Across from him, the lockers glowed gently under the late sun filtering through the windows. He reached into his shirt pocket and pulled out the latest note. I used to think adults didn't see us. Now I know you always did. I want to be like that when I grow up. He smiled. Not big. A real dot, and for the first time, maybe ever, he didn't feel like the man behind the curtain. He felt like the curtain had finally opened. And the stage? It wasn't the kind with lights or applause. Dot, it was a hallway. A cart. A mop. Nameplate Dot. And the quiet echo of footsteps that finally slowed down, not to avoid him, but to see him. Dot, later that evening, as the sky dimmed and the hallway lights flickered. Off one by one, Mr. Howard stood up. He looked one last time at the plaque, and placed his hand gently against it. Just for a second. Dot, no one saw it. Dot, no camera caught it. But if they had, it might have looked like the closing of a circle. The soft punctuation mark at the end of a sentence that took years to be spoken. Dot. And as he walked away down the hallway, the silence behind him wasn't empty. Dot. It was full. Full of words never said, now finally written. Full of steps that used to hurry past, now slowing down. Full of a community that had once looked past him, now finally seeing through him, to themselves. Asterisk, he went back to sweeping floors. Like nothing happened. But for those who were watching, something changed. Not just in the school, but in how we see the ones we never looked at. If this story made you feel something, anything, don't let it stop here. Subscribe, because sometimes the quietest voices carry the biggest truths.